I ain't taking notes from nobody.
Jaylen Brown.
Your superstars have off games.
Follow us on social media at Celtics Talk Weekly.
Welcome into Celtics Postgame Live, everybody. I'm your host, Justin Lowe. Alongside with me, my two co-hosts, Rob Haytain, and below us is our other co-host, Seamus Arlingo, a.k.a. Celtics Every Day. The Boston Celtics defeat the Milwaukee Bucks in Game 2 of the Eastern Conference semifinals, 109-86. They tied the series at one apiece, heading into Milwaukee on Saturday night at 3:30 p.m. Eastern Time for Game 3. Guys, we have a lot to talk about tonight. The Celtics got punched in Game 1, come out, no Marcus Smart. Oh, well, that didn't matter because Grant Williams stepped up big time. Derek White didn't have a good night at all, shooting the basketball 0-6, not scoring, but played tremendous defense tonight. Rob, take us through this game. What was your initial reaction? This was a huge one for the Celtics.
Yeah, much needed win, right? You dropped Game 1 at home. They kind of got bullied, but they came out in the first half and they played a perfect half of basketball on both sides of the ball, defensively and offensively. We were forcing Milwaukee to play sloppy. We held Giannis to a very poor shooting half, and on the other side, Jaylen Brown was phenomenal. He had 25 in the first half on 8 of 9 shooting, 4 of 4 from beyond the arc. Grant Williams was amazing on both sides of the ball all night. And, Jason Tatum did his thing when he needed to. As great as the first half was, the second half concerns me just a little bit. I think that third quarter was, a quarter of settling. But I'm very happy with this win. We did what we were supposed to do here in Game 2 and stop Milwaukee from really running away with this series. And you got a lot to look forward to going into Game 3 on the road, heading over to Milwaukee.
The second half of the game was very haphazardous for the Celtics. That is certainly something they need to improve on moving forward. But the overall theme and the overarching theme of this series so far is the Celtics needed to respond, and that's exactly what they did in this game. And shout out, of course, to Jaylen Brown and Grant Williams. They were easily the two best players on the Celtics tonight. They got things rolling early, and Grant sustained it throughout the game. Jaylen hit a little dry spell there in the third quarter, picked it back up late, which is typical of him. But those two guys were tremendous for the Celtics tonight. But as a team, this was the biggest game of the season. It wasn't an elimination game, but you do not want to go down 0-2 after playing 2 games on your home floor, and now you're going back to Milwaukee playing 2 games on their floor, a place that's going to be very, very tough to win. The Celtics needed to avoid that scenario, and that's exactly what they did tonight. We've talked about their ability to overcome adversity within games, but losing a playoff game and coming back the next game and overcoming that adversity is a different animal, and the Celtics never had to do that in the Nets series simply because they didn't have to. They won every single game. But after Game 1, that was the question with the Celtics was, in this big moment, we've seen them be resilient all year, but in this one moment, can they muster up enough to come out and play in Game 2 and get a win without Marcus Smart? And you saw they started the game on an 18-3 run. Jaylen Brown, a huge part of that. And just the entire team was bringing the intensity defensively. They were getting the ball moving on offense. They were forcing Milwaukee to play that half-court style. Of course, I mentioned in the second half, that went away a little bit. Milwaukee more towards the basket for them in the game in the second half. And, of course, in transition as well, they had more opportunities in the second half in transition. The Celtics typically want to slow that down for Milwaukee. But overall, the Celtics, they held the Bucks to 86 points. That's certainly good news moving forward. But the Celtics certainly have things to improve on in this already pretty fascinating game that we saw tonight.
Yeah, for sure. And I think that something that's going to be a common theme here in this series against Milwaukee is that they are going to be okay with letting us shoot the three-point shot. I mean, we saw it tonight. And if that's going to continue, Budenholzer has a reputation of this, I guess. And he did it in Atlanta, apparently, and he's been doing it in Milwaukee of clogging that lane and having teams beat you from beyond the arc. And, Boston's had a shaky year from beyond the arc. So that's something that if this Celtics team is going to want to find a way to get past the defending champs in this Bucks squad, they're going to need to show up. Guys like Grant Williams, Peyton Pritchard, and Al Horford, are going to need to step up when called upon. And Grant Williams and even Pritchard and Horford had a great game all around, not just really scoring the basketball. He did kind of a little bit of everything for us, but they're going to get their shots, guys like Grant and Pritchard and White. They're going to come, but you got to knock them down when they do come, because we saw it for a second game in a row here. Seamus, Milwaukee is allowing us to shoot the ball, and they refuse to let us get in that paint.
Hey, wait, I just want to point out here for a second. We can maybe get to this later on the show, but Drew Holiday, I always call the 5 of 15 line. If anybody shoots 5 of 15, that's the Drew Holiday, which is, of course, 33%. Tonight, Drew Holiday, 7 of 20, 35%. So living up to his standards entirely. But outside of him, I just look at the Bucks scoring tonight. The big difference to me, obviously, there's so many differences between game one and tonight's game, but the Bucks, they just never had that second guy get going, and Giannis never seemed to have it going until the second half. When you look down the roster, Drew Holiday, 19 points, Portis, 13, Connaughton, 13. After that, your next leading scorer is Grayson Allen with 5 points, and we all know he and I believe it was Pat Connaughton and him, they were the ones who went off in game one. And so the Celtics, that's going to be a huge part of this series, I feel, for Boston, that, you mentioned Milwaukee's going to give up those open threes to Boston, and it's all up to them to actually hit those shots. Of course, Celtics want to go towards the rim as well, but on the other end of the floor, you cannot let Milwaukee's other guys beat them. I almost think this is an opposite series from Brooklyn, where in Brooklyn, we're going, okay, we're taking away KD and Kyrie, and we're letting Bruce Brown, Goran Dragic, Blake Griffin. Well, Blake Griffin wasn't out there too often, but we're letting those guys beat us. Whereas in this series, we're essentially, I think we should let Giannis, of course, get his points at the rim. He's one of the most dominant paint scorers of all time since Shaq. And these other guys, we have to contest shots on the perimeter. We have to close out hard on the perimeter. We have to not let these other guys beat us the way they did in game one, because in game one, the Celtics, for as much as they shot themselves in the foot and didn't really look at all engaged into that game, they could have won that game if a couple of plays went their way in the fourth quarter. So the Celtics, they have to keep those other guys contained. And I thought they did a really nice job of that tonight with Milwaukee, being a little bit more physical. Offensively, we can talk about that later, but defensively, the Celtics were at the level they needed to be tonight.
For sure.
Yeah, I mean, a wire-to-wire win, up 26, as much as 26. You finished up 23. There were moments where Milwaukee cut it down to 15, 14, 13, but that didn't really matter, because every time Milwaukee threw a punch at the Celtics were able to respond well. And you went back, and we could mention Grant Williams, 21 points off the bench tonight. Where would we be tonight without Grant Williams? He was absolutely huge for the Celtics. He shot 6 of 9 from 3. He was everywhere. He was Giannis Antetokounmpo stopper, a little Shemi Ojale, a little better than Shemi Ojale.
A little better.
But, you know what's funny about this? Rob, at halftime, remember I had mentioned to you about how Grant was like a Shemi Ojale stopper, like, how Shemi stopped Giannis. And then didn't I go on to Seamus's Instagram after the game, and he said something along the lines of that as well. And I thought that was pretty funny. But I don't know where we'd be tonight without the help of Grant Williams.
Yeah,
I just want to point out, Shemi Ojale played for the Bucks earlier this season.
Yeah,
they traded for the Clippers. I mean, I could have had him against this.
That's right.
Sorry, go ahead, Rob.
He could have been the Tatum stopper.
No. I mean, I think looking at game 2, the key to the series is Grant Williams. I mean, he's the only guy who's quick enough and big enough to guard Giannis. Well, not guard Giannis, but I mean, he's a good enough body to put on Giannis. You're really never going to stop him. Although something I've noticed in this series is Giannis probably commits about 12 charges a game and only gets called for maybe 2. I mean, he lowers his shoulders and he uses that arm to extend almost every single drive. He's very reckless when he takes it to the paint, and no disrespect to Giannis. Obviously, we know what he's done, 2-time MVP, finals MVP, 1-time champion, but you got to question some of, his abilities. But, Grant is the key, I think. You saw what he did tonight, especially with how Milwaukee plays their defense, and Grant has kind of been our best spot-up shooter all season long. And if he can play and make the impact like he did tonight, I think the Celtics can find a way to take down Milwaukee in this series. And especially, James, something I want to talk about. You mentioned with Milwaukee, they couldn't find their second go-to guy. Usually that's Chris Middleton. Obviously, Middleton out indefinitely throughout this series with that MCL sprain. The big reason I feel like because of they couldn't find that second scoring option is Boston stopped that double teaming Giannis. They let their man go one-on-one with Giannis, and we saw it in game one. Giannis was able to find these spot-up shooters for driving kicks, like guys like Pat Connaughton, guys like Grayson Allen, guys like Bobby Portis, who are phenomenal at catching the ball off from the paint and knocking down threes. They weren't able to do that tonight because those opportunities were not there for them. So I think going forward for Milwaukee, that's something you could see them struggle with if Boston continues to go one-on-one with Giannis Antetokounmpo. They don't really have a surefire number two off the guy to get you a bucket when you need to. And I think you may see, just maybe, the Chris Middleton effect start to play in if Boston is going to continue to allow their defender to go one-on-one with Giannis all series long.
Yeah, and I feel like this is going to be a weird series all throughout, just the way it's being played right now. Milwaukee, I would say Milwaukee overall in the first two games, especially game one, a little less minimized tonight, but you can look at the second half and come out with a different conclusion. But Milwaukee has been the more physical team, while, of course, Stan Van Gundy mentioned it a million times. Everyone noticed throughout the broadcast. Milwaukee is letting Boston shoot and play from the perimeter. And Boston, they've been aggressive going towards the rim. They were aggressive going towards the rim in this game, yet they were not looking to score and they were not converting on those opportunities near the rim. I feel like if the Celtics can convert on those opportunities going towards the rim and continue to be physical while taking those errant three-point shots out of their arsenal, you want to continue to take the wide open ones, but the ones that are coming off the dribble late in the shot clock where, the offense is hectic, or the early shot clock threes, you want to get rid of those from your arsenal. But if the Celtics can convert on their opportunities at the rim, this could end up being a mudslide for Milwaukee in a sense, because their offense is becoming one-dimensional, whereas the Celtics, they have that perimeter shooting. If you're giving them that, as Milwaukee is, they need to hit those shots. On the other end of the floor, Milwaukee, without Middleton, they don't have that guy who can go in isolation and get a bucket, or they don't have these other guys who can create a shot when guys are, say on the Celtics, guys are out there contesting shots, closing out to shooters and making it tough for them and forcing them to make a play. So moving forward in the series, I think the Celtics, they in a weird way have the upper hand, of course, because they're not missing an all-star like the Bucks. Of course, Marcus Smart was out tonight, but Derek White slotted in, played that defensive role quite well. Offensively, not quite the same player, but he does a lot of the same intangible things that Marcus Smart does in terms of getting the ball moving and playmaking for other guys. But I think the Boston Celtics, up to this point, this was a great win for them tonight, but they have another level to go up to against Milwaukee, and we'll see how that plays out in game three. We all know how the playoffs, they're about adjusting, they're about responding, and this is just going to be an adjustment thing for both teams. But Boston, after this game, certainly has to feel good about themselves and where they're going.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, they adjusted very, very well. I thought they came out very aggressive. They came out hitting their shots as well. It was a 30-12 start, or 27-12, whatever you want to call it, start for the Celtics. That's been a big thing too. Even going back in the Brooklyn series, like the Celtics haven't started out games particularly strong, even in their wins, and it showed game one a few days ago, and we were never really able to recover from that. So it was really good tonight to see the Celtics jump out so early. I think it was 25 at half, 65-40, 25 at half. So, I didn't think we let up at all. That like a crazy amount. I thought we got a little carried away with our shot selection. I thought that was the problem. I thought defensively tonight we were really, really good. I mean, 40 points to the Bucks at half, and then 86 to finish the game. Even in game one, the Celtics didn't have a terrible offensive game. Giannis had a nice triple-double, but he didn't shoot. What was he, 9-26? He didn't have a great night. So they finished with 101. They beat us with 101 points. So, this is Game 3, both teams have had their share of 80-point games. So this one could come down to defense as much as we talk about it. And we talk about the discrepancy between the Bucks blowing us out in the paint, but the Celtics are making up for it with their three-point shooting in this series. So, like you said, Seamus, if you start to convert those times you cut to the basket and you miss the layup, or you take away those early shot clock threes, then you really, really can really take down the Milwaukee Bucks. And I don't know. I don't know what to expect on the road, though. I don't know what to expect.
So I think there's 2 points I want to hit. One of them being, like you said, the Celtics hitting shots tonight. That's going to have to be a theme against this Bucks team. And if they aren't able to hit shots, they're going to have to find new ways to get to the basket and get, to the paint. I think we did a good job in the fourth quarter. Brown and Tatum were able to get to the hoop a little bit better. But Milwaukee presents such a difficult matchup inside for the Celtics. And I think if the Celtics are going to want to be successful with that, they're going to have to take advantage on the slight minutes where Giannis is out attacking the hoop. Now, my second point I want to talk about here is Game 3. Game 3 is a big one for Boston. They are going to have to, I don't want to jump to conclusions or anything, but Game 3 could decide where this series goes. Playing on the road down 2-1 is a really tough ask for the Celtics team, especially when you're playing a team with the experience the Bucks have. The Bucks are NBA champions. They've been down 0-2 in the finals, and that last year they came back and found a way to claw back. So if I am the Boston Celtics, you have to go into Game 3 with the mindset that this is a must-win game. You have to they stole one on your court in the first game playing at TD. You got to come out in Milwaukee. You got to come out guns blazing. You got to find a way to get to the hoop, and you got to steal a game in Milwaukee, preferably Game 3, to take off a little bit of pressure on yourself in Game 4. And, if you do win Game 3, then you're looking at Game 4 to potentially head back to Boston to close the series out. It just makes everything a little bit easier. So if they can go into Milwaukee and take Game 3, I really think they could be sitting in a much better position after dropping one in Boston.
Yeah, going on the road, playing on the road is a complete animal than playing at home in front of your home crowd. And the Celtics are going to have to win a game on the road now, because if they don't, the series is over. Because simply, it'll be over in 6. They only have one more home game after this if there isn't a Game 7. And if they can't win a game on the road, the series is. But tonight, looking at tonight's game, I don't know if I mentioned this or not. I kind of mentioned it in the intro, but the Celtics' ability to take away Milwaukee's transition opportunities tonight was huge. Because Milwaukee, in Game 1, they had 28 points on the fast break opportunities. 28 points. Tonight, 6. Those are 22 extra points in Game 1 that we gave Milwaukee in transition, where the defense is the most hectic. Well, the sequence is the most hectic, just play it out wise. But the defense isn't set. They're getting easy opportunities at the rim. Giannis, of course, he only has to beat one guy or 0 guys going to the rim. And we all know Giannis going towards the rim, he's going to get that call every single time. So he is not afraid to go straight to the bucket. And the Celtics tonight took away essentially 22 extra points that the Bucks scored in Game 1 against the Celtics. And, we talk about all these categories that can make a difference. Each and every category can make a difference at the end of the game. But that discrepancy from Game 1 to Game 2 in fast break points for the Bucks was absolutely massive for the Celtics in pulling out this W tonight.
Ian Angelo checking in from the Celtics Talk Weekly studios at the TD Garden. He seems to be there.
Honestly, this might as well be my new studio. Jeez.
Great connection from there.
Oh yeah, great. That game was crazy, man. That was the exact thing that we were talking about yesterday or the other day when we were talking about how they needed to bounce back, how they needed to, they just need to come out. They had to make a statement. They had to win on home court, and they did that. Now they need to win in Milwaukee. man, it's been crazy, man. It was a crazy game.
The Garden sounded like it was rocking for game 2. You were there for game 1 and 2. It kind of seemed like the energy was a little bit higher, the intensity was a little bit better for game 2 rather than game 1. What's with that?
Yeah. Hang on 1 second, guys.
Yeah, he gave you the Kevin Durant. He gave you the
Yeah.
Kevin Durant response. Yeah.
I mean,
yeah.
I went to game 1 and that place was going. So, wow. I mean, listen, you got to be happy with game 1, or game 2. But on the flip side, like I said, there's just a little bit of me that maybe Milwaukee coming into game 2 is like, yes, this is a good game to win, but our business in Boston might just be finished. I don't know, right? They looked a little. I mean, after that first 5-minute stretch in that first quarter, the guys just kind of looked defeated. Other than Giannis, came out in the third and kind of gave us a little mean mug down 15, or 20 rather. He gave us a little mean mug down 20 that didn't really do much. But I can't stress it enough, guys. This game 3 is so big. I want to see a 48-minute display from the Boston Celtics game 3 on the road to really rattle Milwaukee. If the Celtics can do that, then they'll be sitting pretty, I think, for this series.
Sorry.
And we're gonna have to. Oh, go ahead, Ian.
Oh, my bad. Sorry. You were what was your question to me? I'm sorry. It was. What was
I was saying,
yeah.
Well, what was the Garden atmosphere like tonight?
Bro, it was wild tonight. Like game 1, it kind of felt like they kind of felt like it wasn't going to be as wild as I thought it was going to be. Game 2 was insane. I mean, it was insanely fun. Everyone was going wild no matter what happened. It was insane. Sorry, I don't have much explaining, but
yeah, and that Garden crowd is such an advantage. But going into game 3, a point that needs to be highlighted for the Celtics going into game 3, and Rob, you just mentioned it, it has to be a full 48-minute display. Because tonight, for as great of a game as the Celtics had tonight and throughout the game defensively, the offense in the second half, there were definitely times where you looked at it and went, this is just a tad bit concerning if the lead was, of course, less than 25 at halftime. We had all that cushion to, sustain ourselves in the second half. But if we didn't, this game could have, slotted a different way. It could have gone Milwaukee's way because in the second half, Boston was settling a lot. And I don't worry about it too much. We've seen this problem in the past with this team, and up to this point, it's not something that we worry about on a daily basis as we used to, because now the team has the knowledge of, hey, this is a problem that we had earlier in the year. We want to eliminate this from our game. So going into game 3, I have confidence that the Celtics will be able to play more like they did in the first half tonight and sustain that throughout a game rather than in the second half when they were settling, they were driving towards the paint. Stan Van Gundy mentioned it on the broadcast. They were not looking to score whatsoever. They were looking to collapse the defense and kick out. And sometimes that can become a little bit predictable as you go on in time. But you saw down the stretch, guys were a little bit more oriented going towards the paint and actually finishing there. Jaylen Brown, really the leader in that department down the stretch. But they need to play full 48-minute basketball in Milwaukee if they want to win, especially on the offensive end of the floor. We've seen it defensively already this series from the Celtics, and tonight especially, but offensively, they cannot settle. They need to keep attacking. They need to keep looking to score at the rim, and of course, keep kicking out to perimeter shooters and moving the ball around. The ball movement tonight for the Celtics was absolutely phenomenal. They had 17 assists, I believe, at halftime. They ended up with 27 for the game, which is still a really good number for the game, despite only having 10 in the second half. You want that number to go up just a little bit in the half, but compared to Milwaukee only had 16 assists. Tonight only hit 3 3-pointers. This performance from the Celtics is sustainable. It's just whether or not they can continue to not settle for shots in the second half, especially going on the road where the margin for error will be slimmer and slimmer and slimmer. And I believe the Celtics, they'll be able to overcome that in game 3. But it'll be interesting because the Bucks, they're not going to roll over. Giannis, he's not going to let this club roll over whatsoever.
Something I thought that we did much better in the first half, and we really didn't do it at all in the second half, was driving kicks. I think in the first half, we probably were getting
Yeah.
3 driving kicks before we were getting our open looks, and we were knocking the shots down because if you've played basketball, you know a kick out from beyond the arc from the paint is 10 times easier shot to make than when you're
Right.
turning your body from the perimeter. In the second half, it kind of like they kind of came out and they're thinking, oh, we're hot. We're making our threes right now. Let's get a couple of shots up there. And I think we started off the half like 1 for 7 from beyond the arc or something like that because we weren't driving and kicking. When the Celtics are driving and kicking.
It happened again. Sorry, Rob.
Damn it, Ian. Damn it.
What?
Somebody's doing Fast and Furious in your parking lot again.
All right, I gotta head out, but it was a great game, and they have to win on Saturday. That's pretty much all I got to say. That's basically my analysis for this game.
All right,
I'll see you later, guys.
We'll see.
Yeah.
But I think they did a really good job in the first half of driving and kicking, and I think it showed in the box score and from their percentage from beyond the arc. I think they shot 60% from the 3 in the first quarter, 59 from the floor, or first half, 59 from the floor. So it's just little things like that. It's finding what works and doing it for 48 minutes. Obviously, you got to make adjustments and changes. And if Milwaukee adjusts, we saw adjustments from Milwaukee. They kind of picked up the energy and the pace. They've been pressing the Celtics a lot, trying to speed them up and force them into turnovers. I think the Celtics did a much better job tonight in taking care of the basketball. I think Derek White has a big role in that. If you want to talk about impacts, Derek White was plus 22, tied for Grant Williams for the most on the team. And I think that's because when Derek White was in the game, he was doing a great job at running that point guard spot and really making sure the Celtics were not turning the ball over and really being the floor general out there for the season. I mean, he only had 2 turnovers. The Celtics as a team only had 11 compared to Milwaukee's 16. So that's really big, especially in the game 1. Boston 18, Milwaukee had like 13, and 7 of them were in the first 6 minutes of the game, and they kind of really picked it up after that. So it's just about executing. I think we can. We proved tonight that we can not easily, but we can win this series. We can play with this Bucks squad. And I took it back. I didn't mean easily, but we can play with this Milwaukee team. We can beat this team.
They're beatable. They're beatable.
The Milwaukee should be questioned whether or not we're beatable after tonight. Yeah, but Boston's got to go on the road. I want to see them win. I want to see them win on the road before, I can say we're going to go out here and win this series, because seeing Milwaukee win on the road is impressive, especially in the TD Garden.
Seamus, what's the drip going to be like for Game 3?
I don't know. I've been thinking about it. Trust me, I've been thinking about it. I think I have to go. I have to advertise my own brand. Got to go with the Celtics every day.
Are you going to the game?
He is going.
Yeah, I'm going to Game 3 in Milwaukee.
There you go.
It'll be great. It'll be great. I've never been to Fiserv Forum before. Been a couple of other arenas, of course, around the Midwest, but never been to Milwaukee in that sense. I don't know what I'm going to wear.
I heard it sucks.
I don't know.
Yeah.
It's straight up. I didn't realize how downtown the arena was there in Milwaukee. I'm looking at it on maps, and it's straight up downtown Milwaukee. But I don't know. They had a pretty good crowd there for the NBA Finals. I hope that happens the same in the same manner when I go up there to experience all the people there. But you never know. It's just the semifinals. They might not care as much as the NBA Finals.
How far away is it?
It's about 6 hours away from here.
Dude, we're going
From
6
St.
hours.
Louis.
Are you flying? Or are you driving?
Driving.
Oh,
right. It ain't that far, man. The Celtics are too good. The Celtics are too good.
Just go 100 right down the highway. You'll be there in no time.
Hey, man, it's only illegal if you get caught.
That's right. That's right.
That's true. But going forward in this series for the Celtics, I totally forgot the point I was about to make on here. Maybe something will spark it in my mind. 3-pointers. Milwaukee only took 3 tonight. I think I already mentioned that. I don't know. Come back around on me. I might have a good point next time around.
I feel like these first 2 games have been pretty, simple. I think when you look at the series before us, I know we shouldn't be bringing up Brooklyn, but in the Brooklyn series, it was kind of like, oh, well, the Celtics are doing a really good job on Durant and Kyrie, and the other guys around them are playing well. So, when are KD and Kyrie gonna, step it up? And when is, are the Celtics able of keeping this defensive Are they, can they defensively play to this level every single night? So there was a lot to talk about. There's a lot to think about. But with this Celtics Bucks series through 2 games, it just feels like Boston shot themselves in the foot game 1, and they came out and responded like they were supposed to. When you're sitting back and you're thinking, game 3, I got no idea who's going to win, because we've seen a game where Milwaukee kind of controlled the game.
Right.
The Celtics couldn't crack them. And then game 2, the Celtics kind of controlled the game, and Milwaukee could never really crack them. Obviously, the Celtics did it to a little bit higher level. They were hovering around 20-point lead. Milwaukee was up into 6-8 until the 4th, and they ran away with it and pushed it up to 13. But right now, I think you got to sit back and you got to kind of wait for game 3 to happen before you can really make any assumptions. I sent this over to Justin at halftime. You had Stephen A. Smith going out there and saying, Boston has no answer for Giannis, and this series might just well be over. And I'm sitting down and I'm thinking to myself, so when the Celtics came in and they took care of business in game 1 against Brooklyn, people were saying, oh, well, KD's going to get 40, and Brooklyn is just, it was one game, it took a game winner. So I'm sitting there and I'm thinking, like, well, hold on, pump the brakes. We've seen plenty of times. Let's throw it back to 2019 when Milwaukee beat Boston in 5 games. Boston came in. It was actually very similar to what we're seeing. Boston came in game 1 on the road and took care of business. They kind of had a little wire-to-wire win after the first quarter. We led and just ran away with it. Game 2, Milwaukee comes in and they take care of business on home court. Then they go on the road, tied 1-1. Boston was feeling defeated. They had a long season. They were kind of injured, banged up. Milwaukee, a little injured, banged up. So, we've seen this plenty of times before in the NBA where teams are dropped the first game, dropped the second game, and the series is nowhere close to being over. It's really all about game 3 and 4. Right. And, that's why you can't really jump to any conclusions through the first 2 games. We've seen a good game from Milwaukee and a bad game from Boston, and I think we've seen a good game from Boston and a pretty bad game from Milwaukee.
I'm praying we win game 3. Because I don't want to play. I don't want to play from behind. I don't care if it's only 2-1. Like, I don't even want there to be a chance. I do not want to play from behind.
I don't think you can afford to play behind in Milwaukee.
No.
I don't think you can. I don't think you can afford being down 2-1 with a game 4 in Milwaukee. I think that's exactly what the Bucks are looking for. They were looking to take one in Boston, win game 3, and now you're playing the game 4 at their place to go up 3-1.
Yeah.
It's like what I say. I said it entering this series. It's the recipe to success. Steal one on the road, take care of business at home court. And right now, I hate to say it, but Milwaukee has done that. And Boston has to come out, and they got to shut that down real quick. They got to take a game in Milwaukee.
Yeah, Rob, you made most of my point there. And it was ridiculous to think people, out there, you mentioned Stephen A. Smith, but there were a lot of people out there thinking that this series was going to lean a certain way after game 1. And I think that notion was absolutely ridiculous after what we've seen from the Celtics this entire season. And of course, there was the question coming in, can the Celtics respond to adversity in this particular playoff moment? Because this is bigger than all of those regular season moments where, hey, it's just, we're going to play next week, or we're playing on Wednesday, or playing on Friday. We're going to have more opportunities to overcome this adversity. Yet now you have to perform in the next game if you want to win a series and continue to advance. And the notion that the Celtics were just going to roll over and just be completely outplayed this entire series was absolutely ridiculous after what we saw the second half of the season, where the Celtics continuously overcame that adversity, continuously were elite on the defensive end of the floor, continuously made adjustments under Ime Udoka, and continuously responded offensively when they needed to. The fact people thought after game 1 that this was going to be over and it was all Milwaukee, I mean, that's just ridiculous. If you look at 1 through 9, the Celtics, I still think they have more than Milwaukee to their team. And over time, I hope that plays out for the Celtics in their favor, where we just have more manpower than they do. And of course, this series is going to take a lot of scheming to win, but in terms of sheer manpower, the Celtics, they're arguably more talented than Milwaukee 1-8, 1-9. So going forward, I believe the Celtics is going to be a real series. This is going to be a 6 or 7 game series. I mean, I would not be surprised if it goes 7 at all. Of course, we said that after game 1 against Brooklyn, but I do believe this Milwaukee team is a completely different animal, way more versatile, way more strength, way more length on their team. And of course, they have Giannis, who right now looks like the best player in the world out of every single superstar in the NBA. But the Celtics, they're not done. They're not done here at all. Of course, we just saw it in game 2 that they're not done. But after game 1, everybody needs to take, as you said, Rob, games 1 and 2 with a little bit of a grain of salt, because it's all games 3 and 4 that matter later on in a series that can really determine a series. Every game determines a series, but that game 1 and that game 2, things can happen in those games, and it's all about how you respond to those games moving forward, not necessarily, what you do in that game, unless that, of course, follows you throughout an entire series, which typically in a series like this between two really, really good teams in the semifinals, they're going to adjust. Things are going to look different as the series goes on. And from game 1, we were not, as I mentioned earlier, the Bucks only had 6 transition points tonight. In game 1, they had 28. In game 1, the Bucks out-rebounded us. We out-rebounded them tonight. You look at 3-point percentage. I believe they beat us in game 1. We were shot really putrid in game 1, and that all flipped tonight. And that's what the playoffs are all about, is the fact that things ebb and flow, things change throughout a playoff series. And you can't just take game 1 and say, okay, well, that's just how the series is going to go, because simply that's just not how the playoffs work.
Right.
Yeah, I think as we're wrapping up here soon, but, one more thing before we do is I think that from Milwaukee side of things, not having Middleton, I don't think the effects of that is shown quite yet. I think later, like we said, it's only games 2. We've only played 2 games, and when it's really easy to ask guys like Bobby Portis and Grayson Allen and Pat Connaughton, as great as they are at their respected roles, it's tough to ask those types of players to step up for 4 out of 7 games and successfully have big nights. And that's what Milwaukee needs if they want to beat Boston. They need 15 to 20 points from the third other guy, especially with how Boston's players have been stepping up here. We saw it against Brooklyn. Guys like Smart, Horford, and now Grant Williams are stepping up to that 20-point threshold. Now, I'm not saying they're averaging 20 points per game. What I'm saying is that in games where they need an extra source, right, they have someone stepping up and doing that. I don't know if Milwaukee consistently has that. Like I said, it's only been 2 games. We saw it in game 1 with a little bit of Bobby Portis, and Grayson gave him 11. And we know what Brook Lopez can do. It kind of looks like Brook's been a no factor, though, in this big man matchup offensively, due to how great Al Horford and Robert Williams can contest those perimeter shots. So I think that's a big thing moving forward here, is just if Milwaukee can have someone other than Drew Holiday and Giannis Antetokounmpo step up and make winning basketball plays on the offensive side of the court, because we know what the Celtics defense can do. But we'll find that out in game 3 as the Celtics take care of business at home at the TD Garden, 109-86. Next game is Saturday mid-afternoon, 3:30. You can find that on ABC's. This series is all tied up at 1 apiece, guys. Celtics Bucks game 3 Saturday. We'll have you covered here for Celtics Postgame Live. Seamus will be live from from Milwaukee.
Pfizer
Forum. So go follow him over there on social media. I'm sure he'll be posting all while he's at the game. And this has been Celtics Postgame Live. Have a good